Hey everyone, and welcome to SkillCapped. In this guide, we'll be going over the 3 aiming techniques the pro Valorant player ACEU uses to get more kills and top frag in his games. Now, even though these are used by a pro, you'll be surprised to find that anyone can use these techniques to improve their aim. Not only will you learn how to improve fundamentals of your aim like flicking and crosshair placement, but also a more advanced technique of aiming with only your movements to get laser-like accuracy. Before we jump into it though, make sure that you subscribe with bells on to get more premium guides just like this one with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. Alright, so jumping into our first aiming technique, we have crosshair placement. Now I know this may not be the flashiest sounding technique, but it is so important to learn as it's actually what makes the foundation of all aiming in Valorant. If you want to become an aiming god, then you have to master crosshair placement. Overall, the purpose of crosshair placement is to reduce the amount of actual aiming you have to do before shooting. Once this technique is mastered, you'll find enemies walking into your crosshair a lot more often, resulting in you getting kills without ever having to move your mouse. So let's see exactly how to use this technique in a real game as we head into a game on bind in a pistol round that ACEU is playing in. So ACEU decides to push short A on defense. That's not important though. What is important is how he's positioning his crosshair while he does this. Firstly, it's always at head level. This means if an enemy suddenly appears, all he has to do is left click and he'll get a headshot. Easy as that. This is the first rule of crosshair placement. Constantly keep your crosshair at headshot level. Now secondly, notice the technique he's using to keep the crosshair placed correctly. He's smoothly tracing the edge of the corners. This technique is commonly referred to as tracing. What this accomplishes is that if he suddenly sees an enemy, the crosshair will be right on their head without having him to adjust. Now notice how he moves up to the next corner, he's no longer tracing, and instead is looking through the wall. This technique is known as pre-aiming, and look at what this accomplishes. He's now able to quickly peek the corner, with his crosshair pre-aimed on a common location an enemy would be at. This is insanely valuable as it gives the enemy almost no time to react and leaves very little of your agent exposed. Alright, so we know how to keep our crosshair at headshot level, but when should we use tracing and when should we use pre-aiming to accomplish this? Use tracing when you have to clear a lot of angles as you move and have no idea where the enemy could be. Use pre-aiming when you're about to peek a single angle that is a common location the enemy will be at. Alright, so ACEU now has to continue to move forward and look for a flank on the enemy. Imagine you're in his shoes. Which technique would you use in this situation to maintain correct crosshair placement? Would you trace or would you pre-aim? He begins by tracing as he clears the length of the upcoming hallway. Then once he's done this, he now knows there's only one remaining location for him to check, so he transitions into pre-aiming it. This is a great example of how you don't have to only use one technique or the other. Sometimes you want to trace to clear off the majority of angles. Then, once you have one angle left, you can transition into pre-aiming it. So he continues to move forward and the enemy cipher places a tripwire, which he then has to destroy to continue his flank. Now he knows the enemy team should know he's there given that he just destroyed a tripwire. So he stands still to hold an angle on hookah, waiting for the enemy to peek him. Obviously, we need to keep our crosshair at headshot level. The real question is, how far away from the wall should your crosshair be? We can hold it super tight to the wall or super far away. In this case, ACEU is holding it very close to the wall. So why does he do this? Well, it actually has to do with predicting what kind of peek the enemy would do. Do you think he's going to swing wide? In that case, you want your crosshair to be placed further away from the wall. Do you think he's going to jiggle peek or peek up close to the corner? Then place your crosshair really tight or close to the wall. In this case, ACEU correctly predicts the enemy will peek up close and doesn't even have to adjust his crosshair and simply left clicks for an easy headshot. Alright, so onto our second aiming technique, we have aiming with purely movement. This technique is most consistent by far, but at the same time, it is the most limiting. The consistency comes from having no margin for mouse control error. You only need 2 buttons to press, A and D. Once the crosshair matches their head, you just have to counter strafe and you'll get a headshot easily. The limitations are in the horizontal aspects of the aim. You can only adjust your aim left and right. If the enemy is in an elevated area whatsoever, there will be no way to hit the head. Also, the speed at which you aim is dependent on how fast your character is actually moving. So if this technique is so limiting, why would you do it in the first place? In certain micro adjustment scenarios, using your mouse can actually cause a chance for error and maybe cause you to miss that first shot due to overshooting your crosshair. If you use movement to adjust your crosshair though, not only is it a lot easier than slowly moving your mouse, it also allows you to reposition your character, which forces the enemy to also readjust their crosshair just to kill you. In this clip, we can see ACEU on a save round, and he chooses to use the shorty close range for a quick kill and hopefully to grab an extra gun. He gets into a closer corner to hopefully be at a more advantageous spot, but unfortunately he gets raised naded out and he's forced to dash. ACEU commits hard onto fragging in short and decides to stay even after the sage wall comes up. The enemies are breaking down one side of the wall, but ACEU knows he can stay hidden using the box as cover. After hearing stomping from the enemy and reading that the enemies will commit to the push, ACEU stays and waits patiently and swings into Cypher as he is coming out to frag him. If ACEU were to hold too tight or too far, the frag might have had a margin of error, but matching the Cypher's speed and swinging the crosshair into his body was the most consistent way to actually get the frag. After that, he quickly smokes himself out and an enemy gets fragged out by an ally sage who was looking at the smoke push at the time. This is an example of needing zero mouse adjustment for a frag. Now onto the next clip, we actually see ACEU trying to hold another short push on bind. Unfortunately at the time, ACEU actually had some technical difficulties on his stream, so after alt-tabbing back into the game, he finds himself getting tagged by a Sova dart and about to be ulted. Fortunately though, ACEU's Sage teammate has gotten a wall up to stall for time for him to get back. As Sova's trying to hit him with his ult, ACEU uses some crazy maneuvers and manages to live through it. After a sigh of relief, he decides to go back into U-Haul to help maintain short control. While walking up though, he takes a quick look at the minimap and sees his friendly sage wall is still up, but with a gap. ACEU then decides to use the jiggle mechanics combined with a pre-fire to try and get info and a frag at the same time.
You should A.
When in a situation where you think there is a lot of enemies, but at the same time you want to gather some safe information, the jiggle peek mechanic is by far the most reliable. For those unfamiliar with what a jiggle peek is, it's when you quickly peek using the A and D keys. You have several goals when using a jiggle peek. Number 1, peek as fast as you can and show your body as little as you can. Number 2, have the area you want to shoot already pre-aimed at the wall. Make sure it's also head level. And number 3, once you jiggle out, fire a couple of bullets and retreat. The things you should look out for are how many people are there and if you did damage them at all. Again, some of you may be confused as to why you shoot when jiggle peeking, as since we're moving, you may be under the impression that our bullets will be slightly inaccurate. This isn't true though, due to a mechanic known as strafe shooting. Strafe shooting allows us to fire with complete accuracy despite looking like we're still moving. To strafe shoot, you first begin by moving to the side. In this case, we hit the A key and move to the left. Then we let go of the A key and hit the D key. Since we're changing the directions, there's actually a small window where we're standing completely still before we start moving in the other direction. It's here you want to left click to shoot as you're perfectly accurate. We have more detailed guides breaking down the mechanics of shooting, so if you're still confused, make sure to check those out. Essentially, jiggle peeking is a great tool to both gather information, but at the same time potentially get kills by combining it with strafe shooting and pre-firing. Jiggle peeking is great if you think the situation that you're swinging into is a very high risk situation. What you can do is just jiggle and pre-fire, and if the enemy fires back, or in this case you see the Cypher for a split second, you've gained a lot of information and gave yourself a chance for a kill, for basically risking nothing at all at the same time as well. Alright, so on to our last aiming technique. We have the most flashiest by far, and that's flicking. These are the plays that everybody remembers because of its speed and accuracy. Unfortunately, having both of these aspects is difficult. Being fast and precise is something that needs to be developed over time. Even the best players in the world don't have consistent flicks because in reality, it is the lowest success rate technique to use. Sometimes it should be considered as a last resort depending on where you think your level of aim is at. As you can see here in this clip, ACEU decides to clear out showers aggressively. He takes the orb and assumes nobody is outside showers. He comes back onto site and jump peeks over the wires to check if there's anybody in short. After some calls from his team, he decides to push and be ready to aggressively teleport. 2 kills in hookah go down and bomb is dropped. ACEU rushes in to support his team as fast as he can because that is what duelists should do in defense. In a rush, ACEU decides to dash into hookah and assist his team, but all of a sudden as he jumps onto the box, the brim pushes out of the smoke. Due to poor crosshair placement, ACEU is forced to use the flick technique. If he doesn't kill the brim soon, this gives a big window of opportunity for the brim to actually kill ACEU. Unfortunately, ACEU misses his daggers and pays the price. This is caused by rushed decisions made by ACEU and causing him to use a flick as a last resort. Here's the thing, far too many players think that flicking is what makes for good aiming. This is just not true at all. Even the best players will miss shots when having to flick. It's a technique to use as a last resort. Instead, the vast majority of kills are going to come from the other fundamental skills in this guide. The key to having more consistent flicking in the future is to actually train slowly and accurately. Raising speed over time will allow you to still consistently get frags and let you work on other areas of the game besides raw aim. With the practice range available as a great aim improving tool, it is a great place to start. A good routine to work on precision is to simply have the bots all appear and hit only the head. Use your eyes and make sure to have the bots' heads in the center of your crosshair before shooting every single time. Take your time with each shot and make every one of them count. After taking a shot, try to switch to the next target as soon as you can, but again, make sure the head is in the center of your crosshair before shooting. Do this as a warm-up for around 5 minutes, move on to easy, medium, or hard difficulty bots after. Use the same concepts as you did just now and make sure to kill the bots one shot in the head. The goal is to be able to get a score of at least 50%, which equals at least 15 bot kills, before moving on to the next harder difficulty. If you aren't achieving at least 50% kill rate on the bots, then you want to drop down the difficulty, as this means you aren't doing effective training, as you aren't improving your accuracy, and instead are developing bad habits trying to land super fast random flicks. Alright, so which aiming technique did you find the most successful to learn? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're down there, leave a like and hit the subscribe button with bells on to get more premium guides that help you improve. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.